know, glad you didn't decline to come on the show or anything. Why did you add the hero's journey, and what were your goals from that?
Roughly 30% of players didn't own any epic equipment. Only 0.5% of our player base had max heroes.
When will new epic get added to the hero's journey?
This new equipment will not be automatically added to the track.
So the equipment might have even been nerfed by then anyway. Communication needs to improve. I think the Oars for All slogan and like how you teased all of that was a mistake.
We dropped the ball on that one.
Is compensation going to be backdated for this, or you have alluded to improvements to the ore economy?
This is not a fix for the ore economy. This is one step, and there are a lot more things coming up. The game has been alive for almost 14 years at this point. Our latest update was one of the biggest updates we had in years. Is Clash better now than it was 3 or 4 years ago? My real answer is
Rafa, thank you so much for joining me.
thanks for having me.
I wanted this first interview to solely just be about the hero's journey, to be honest, because I put out questions to my community for this Judo Sloth Talks, and majority were about the hero's journey and in specific, the migration. So a lot of questions are going to be based on that, but I did want to give you the opportunity first, I guess, to just go over why did you add the hero's journey and what were your goals from that?
Yeah, let's dive into these topics, and hopefully I'll try my best to be open here and explain like what it is, why we did that. But for us to get the full picture, we need to go back in time a little bit. In 2023, when we introduced the hero equipment, we made one decision as a team. We really wanted this new gameplay toy to be accessible for all the players, including free-to-play players. And that's a decision that we still stick to. The thing is, these release events, they worked very well for everybody that was there, like that saw the events, that were playing Clash back in that time and that engaged with them. But if you lost that event because you are not even playing Clash or you had a break, it was very hard to catch up. It's easy to catch up when you miss 1 or 2, but when you miss like, years of content, it's very, very challenging. And on top of that, we also think that upgrading your heroes should feel more exciting, because they are such a core part of the experience in Clash of Clans. So with all these things in mind, we had 2 objectives for the hero journey. The first one was we wanted a clear path for players to kind of access the existing epic equipment through their gameplay progress and hopefully get hyped, get excited about the upcoming equipment. And the second part is that we wanted the upgrading of your heroes to feel more rewarding.
So nothing to do with the ore economy itself.
Yeah, this is something that maybe we should have communicated this in a better way, because the hero's journey is not a fix for the ore economy. It's mostly a catch-up mechanic for these new and re-engaged players that were like in a situation that it's very hard to catch up. And whenever we talk about fixing the ore economy, like whenever we think about the big changes that will fix the economy as a whole, it's hard to fix these things for the whole population if we don't give these players a fair chance to catch up. And also, when we talk about catching up, like catching up is not instant. All these players will still have to play for a long time, upgrade their heroes, level up their equipment, and just like upgrade their village in the regular way. So the goal for us was to make the gap between these different player segments more manageable.
Okay, can you share anything about the gap? Are you able to, you mentioned that a few times about like having people catching up. What did that look like then from the players that did have the equipment and the players that you're trying to help here? Can you share any data with us about that?
Sure. I can't recall all the numbers and decimals on top of my head, but here's some rough data up to May of this year. At that point, roughly 30% of players from Town Hall 8 and above didn't own any epic equipment. And a little more than half of that, of the total player base, owned just like 0, 1, or 2 epic equipments. And that situation was way worse for re-engaging players. For re-engaging players, half of it didn't own any epic equipment, and around 75% of all re-engaging players, they only had between 0 and 2 epics. And we can also like share some graphs with your audience and with the players to help them visualize this data, but the contrast was very visible.
Wow, yeah, that'd be great. I'll have them flashed up on the screen already so that they can see the exact numbers, I guess. That's I mean, a big difference. You also like pre-leveled some of the equipment, so I'm guessing levels were also like. Have you got any data on levels that you can share as to why you chose to pre-level equipment? Not
Sure.
just give them. If the gap was epic equipment being not owned, you also made the choice to level them up.
Yeah, with levels, the story was kind of similar. So some of the rough numbers again, I think the average epic equipment level at Town Hall 12 was something like 10. And at Max Town Hall 18, the average was like 19 levels. And these are for players that are engaging regularly. For re-engaging players, this number is also lower.
Okay.
Yeah, and this kind of like reinforce our initial hypothesis, the one that we were discussing before about like the gap and the different player segments. But we need to remember that like players that are highly engaged in our game, play all the events and get the content in the regular time, they still have early access to all this content, and we want to make sure that their journey is exciting too. Like this is not the end of the story here. We're going to keep adding more content that also target these other player segments, and we want to make sure that if you're highly engaged, you are still like having a nice time in the game.
For sure. You mentioned about players getting that early access, but I think one thing that is unclear right now is when will New Epic get added to the hero's journey? Like, New Epic comes out as an event. Is it similar to when it goes to the trader shop or the CWL or like in the treasure chest? So when can players expect a new Epic to be released in the event, and then when would that be later released into a hero's journey? Because then they can make a decision of, do they want to purchase the equipment from the event? Do they wait because they know actually in X amount of time it's going to be in the hero's journey, so I have the possibility of getting it there? Like, I've even said that in some of my medal event videos. If you are, Town Hall 13 and this is a Dragon Duke equipment, consider getting an older one. Or if you have all of the others, maybe just spend the medals on ore to upgrade your equipment, and then this you might even get from a treasure hunt event, the like rocket backpack I'm meaning, when that comes around. So I think it's important that players know when these would be releasing.
Yeah, let's go step by step here. Like, I don't have any specific time range to share, but I can say that no, this new equipment will not be automatically added to the track. It's important for us to make sure that like new content feels fresh and retains that novelty for a certain amount of time. Currently in the game we have 17 epics, and this number is only going to go up. We have more things coming up this year. We have more things planned for the future. I don't think this number is going to go down. So we're going to keep that kind of like this amount range in mind, and we're going to like fine tune this and do the transition of adding them to the journey with time. And we need to analyze like what are the new hero levels that are coming up, what is the new content that is being added to the game, and we're going to migrate these things calmly. But no, we're not going to put them automatically there. We want to make sure that if you're present for the release of a new content, you can actually like enjoy that with enough time and get some head start. But when we talk about choices, like I'm a Clash player too, and I'm always trying to optimize my choices. But at least the way that I see these issues in the game or this kind of decisions is that more important than making the perfect decision, it's giving players like the opportunity to decide by themselves. So as long as I can give like a fair opportunity for them to make this choice, it seems like aligned with the way that we work. But if you got access to a new equipment, like don't worry, this is not going to be automatically added in there.
Okay, so it sounds like you don't have a set period of time in mind. It's not like the trader shop where it kind of routinely they get added to the trader shop afterwards. If I'm understanding what you said correctly there, it sounds like a bit like the treasure chest. That's more your plan, where I think the last time new equipment was added to the treasure chest, there was a couple of them. Like they were added in a batch.
Yeah.
So that's more what you're thinking rather than a dedicated... I know things can change, right? I don't want to lock you into an answer right now, but more so that players have an idea, right? This is a brand new feature. People are trying to understand, like, how does this impact me? How does it impact me moving forward? How can I make the best decisions to get the best out of my, like, medals and ore? And so not an exact number, but probably more batches of them added to the hero's journey down the line. But you want to have an exclusive, like, period or something like that as well of...
Yeah, I think the thought process is the same. The difference here is we provide different ways to kind of like catch up in this missing equipment or other items in the game, but depending on the catch-up mechanism, we think in a different way. So things like gem shop or trader shop, like these are things that already exist as a structure. This one is a new one, and we're gonna have to analyze and decide calmly when to do that migration. But the logic will be similar to the one you described with the chess, and possibly like, because this is tied to a lot of other conditions in terms of like how you progress in the track, I think the timeline is gonna be even like larger, if it makes sense.
So the equipment might have even been nerfed by then anyway.
Well, I know you're saying this as a joke, but like, yeah, maybe. To be very honest with you, maybe. But balancing is one of these things that I know it's very delicate, but we need to understand that like for us, balancing is like part of the journey of Clash. And I say this because we always release new town halls, new troops, new equipment, new spells and whatever. And as these things get into the meta changes. So we need to make sure that like things are balanced in there. And if you want more details on how we do that, usually our gameplay team, they're looking for outliers. They're looking for something that it's like really, really deviating from the normal rule. So if something is like too weak or breaking the game too much, they fine tune. But specifically with equipment, we try to communicate these things with enough time for players, because we don't want people to make a decision and invest in an equipment and then like shortly after that we change. Like that feeling is not good, and we try our best not to do that. So if we do any changes, we communicate in advance and we try to justify. But we need to keep in mind like Clash is an ever-growing game. It's been on for almost 14 years, and the meta changed a lot. You know this more than me. The only thing I can guarantee to you guys is that we'll never like, nerf something to the ground. This is not in our interest, and it's not nice. Like we see equipment as things that will make your battling experience more interesting, and we see them as options. So it's almost like a toolbox. And experimenting and tweaking around and switching them, it's like part of the fun. If we make something like, if we nerf it too much, like you have a tool that is not useful. So that's not what we want.
Yeah. Okay. Very good answer. Political way of putting things. Like I know I was joking, but on the same token, I do appreciate the difficulty in balance, and like especially when the amount of equipment that's being released, it can be hard to know how the players are going to use it. And yeah, I guess like we can use electro boots whilst they're at their fullest form before they get, like nerfed. But I get what you're saying. You haven't nerfed things down to the ground. They are balanced like appropriately. That is one area you have communicated things like well with, is the equipment balance changing. But yeah, I appreciate what you said. There was, before we move to the migration, which is obviously like the key topic for a lot of people, there was one thing that you mentioned that I feel we haven't like picked back up on, but you said the importance of hero levels. Is that you were seeing, a nostalgic of previously like 5 levels were really important for like different ability levels? Obviously we don't have that anymore. Were you seeing that as something you wanted to bring back, or was it more that equipment is kind of like the powerhouse of heroes and the stat increments aren't as meaningful anymore, and as like there's more hero levels, those stat increments are, negligible sometimes. It's like really you have to collect a lot of levels to make a bit of a difference. Was it one or both of those things, or like what was the thought of really wanting to bring hero levels back?
Sure. Well, this is a bit of a complex answer. It's a chunky one, but I'll try to make sense here. There's a lot of discussion around like the metric we use around migration, and there's people pointing that hero levels are not the same as equipment levels, which is true, and they say that this should not be the metric for the migration. But here's the thing: when we look at the data, our data is actually showing that the hero levels and both equipment ownership and leveling are extremely correlated. What we try to do is like on average they are correlated, and it's important to say that like when we deal with average, there's a lot of outliers.
So it was extremes.
So
like
the extremes, exactly,
players,
yeah.
Like not.
And we tried our best to like treat these outlier cases and make sure that everyone was like getting some. But the reality is, whenever we deal with average, if you are not part of that average, it can feel weird. And I know we're gonna dive deeper in the migration, but we need to remember that the role of the migration was just to put most players in the situation that they have at least like a few pieces of epic equipment at a playable level. And when we say playable level, it's important to remember that like we're not leveling up or giving equipments and putting that at a level that will be equal to the active players' levels. That's not the point. Everyone that is under that average will actually be in what we call like a low baseline, which means that they still have like a long way to go if they want to put that up to the standards of like a highly engaged player.
I guess that's a bit like case by equipment though. In like monolith arrow, for example, like you can use that at a lower level, but some other equipment, the minimum level, as you say, like action figure is a prime example where the scaling of that goes up quite a bit. Or magic mirror is probably a better example where at level 18 you get a third queen. So yeah, there's some equipment where that they are like below the baseline. I think there are some equipment where granted like it is at a level that's minimum level sort of thing. Like you have leveled it right the way up to where people can just get going and use it and be perfectly efficient.
Yeah, and it kind of circles back to your previous question because like all these newer pieces of equipment, it's hard for us to understand like what is a baseline, what is a lower baseline. But when we talk about equipment that have been in the game for a while and has been through like different changes in the game, we have a better understanding, both like a feeling as designers and also like the data. It's way more insightful for us.
I appreciate the explanation of the hero journey and like what you were trying to achieve and stuff, but I guess like most of the questions were regarding the migration, so I do want to move on to that. And I do want to share my thoughts and like some areas that I was frustrated about, but trying to give like specific questions from specific people and things because of the sheer volume of questions, but that should be telling as well. I guess first, what do you have to say on the migration before I share my stuff?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna start by saying that like migration itself is a hard topic, especially in games like Clash with a huge player base. And this one specific had a lot of variables. So it was a big challenge for us. We can talk later about like the bugs and other problems we had, but it's important to remember that like our latest update was actually like one of the biggest updates we had in years. There was a lot of things happening. So like migration alongside other changes like just made things harder. But let's dive into the migration. I'm gonna try to explain like what are the different cases here, and then we explain why they exist. So for migration, players were topped up in terms of like epic equipment ownership based on their cumulative hero levels, as we said before. And our goal was to try to balance these different player segments that we also dissect a little bit. Only 0.5% of our player base had like max heroes. And for these players, starting with their cases, for these players we actually like gave some more hero levels and placed like Starry Ore, a Book of Heroes, and the final like free skin in the track to make sure that they still have something to progress towards and they can actually like, you know, enjoy the experience of getting something in that track. For players that were like far along into that track, they also have like items, resources, skins, and other things to unlock. But here's the deal. I know it might feel weird for more highly engaged players, but if these catch-up rewards just go to all the players that are above that baseline of the things we're trying to fix, we just expand that gap that I explained before instead of reducing it. This is the logical take on this data. But I'm human too. I know it sucks when you are not on an average, but we need to remember that we're always saying like first step, and I'm saying this because this is one action, it's one like initiative in the game, and this initiative has very clear goals, at least for us, but it doesn't mean that the other player segments will not get initiatives and novelty that are targeting their group. And this is the part that I feel like it's hard for us to communicate as part of the game dev team. I have this kind of like long-term vision and I know our plans, and I cannot expect people to actually share the same vision because, well, they don't know these plans. But I can guarantee to you guys that like this one is treating a very specific issue, but we're always trying to bring like cool things for all the different player segments because in the end of the day, we want class should be played by the biggest amount of people, and we want them to have a good time in our game.
I mean, I'll definitely like pick up on that a little bit as well. I would say for the migration itself, to me, there's a few things you kind of alluded to, but I think a big thing was communication. And I don't know how many times I have given feedback to Supercell that communication needs to improve, because if it had have been communicated beforehand, it would have had many advantages, right? You kind of teased the feature of hero levels and getting rewarded for that. I think the Ores for All slogan and like how you teased all of that was a mistake, because that's not necessarily how it was implemented. And I, for one, in my video, when I first heard about it, was trying to reassure my community, like, you just upgrade your heroes as it is. Like, there's no way they would like punish you for upgrading your heroes now rather than like waiting. And that did kind of happen. So if we had have known beforehand, rather than trying to tease it, people could have planned. They could have made a decision, which is what you said, right? They could have decided, do I want to upgrade my heroes now? I still can if I want to. It's their choice. But they could have also chose, I'm actually going to wait. I know it's not that much of a heads up, right? Like, what would it have been, like 5 or 6 weeks? But they could have chose to not upgrade their heroes and maybe like know that they'd get a little bit extra from it. On top of that, I think it's just good practice to communicate with your audience beforehand. So like, I would just strongly advise in the future, if there are situations like this, you're just open and a bit more transparent. Like, you've kind of been doing things a bit better in like the gameplay, the state of the gameplay blog posts and things. But I think just being more open is the first thing I would say on this, because even as creators, we didn't get, you know, like after the fact you shared a big chart that showed the ore and things like that. We didn't get that. And then we're disseminating information to the community when we have limited information to go off ourselves, right? And then it almost looks like we haven't shared the picture to people properly. But the reality is we just didn't even know. Like, we weren't given that information. So I think communication on all fronts was a big slip. And that's one area I think needs to be like addressed and improved. For me, when it comes to the catch up, I can understand what you're saying, right? In terms of like, if everyone gets the rewards, no one, like, I don't know that the gap would become, I mean, it could become bigger, but it doesn't close anything. And I can understand like the chests are difficult to, like, you're looking back as a Town Hall 18 and getting like maxed rewards out of these chests, when in reality they're meant to be played through over a period of time, getting some at X Town Hall level, some at this Town Hall level, etc. But I do think for sure the fallback starry ore from equipment, that should have been given. Like, if we earned the equipment from the event, we should get that fallback starry ore. That absolutely should have been the case. And I also think the temporary storage of items was a bit wrong as well, because it just preloaded a bunch of hero books or whatever into people's temporary storage, which equally forces them to like make upgrades, and like it puts them, when it's like a 24-hour timer in there, that's stressful for people. They can't manage their resources the way that they wanted to. So like, I think there's so many aspects that could have been better. Hindsight's always a wonderful thing, right? But I think the communication was massive, especially from a creator point of view. Like, it was really frustrating to see that like people felt I didn't explain things enough when I just didn't have that data. So from my point of view, like, that's really frustrating. I think the fallback starry ore, like, even if you argue the chest side of things, the fallback starry ore should have been given. And I understand the sentiment. Like, I agree that it kind of sucks for those people, right? And that's where I think that fallback starry ore should have been given. And I also think the temporary storage was a bad idea as well.
Yeah, I get it. And again, like, I'm here to hopefully like have an open talk with you and explain these things. But like, I'm not in a position that I'm just like defending things or telling people how to feel. That's not the objective of this chat here. I get this point. I think that the communication like is something that we need to improve, especially considering that, like, as I said before, our update was huge, but we want to keep like adding more and more things to the game. So we need to get better on this, because because it's a challenge that will be present in the future. The part of the temporary storage, that one I can say openly that we dropped the ball on that one. We wanted people to use these items, but it was way too tight. And like when it comes to all these things, the most honest answer that I can give to you guys is that we are like analyzing these things, like learning, and we're gonna hopefully make things better in the future. It's hard for me to say like when and what, but like I can say that we're hearing the feedback, we're constantly checking things up, and we're gonna hopefully learn with this and make things better.
Yeah, I will say, like, when it comes to the communication side of things, I think that has benefits for you as well, right? Like, I'm saying it from a player perspective, but you could have almost, like, gut-checked how this was going to go down. And I think the sentiment, you'd have at least got a feeling of, like, oh, maybe that's something we overlooked or, like, whatever. I mean, yes, you might not get those finer details. I don't know that the temporary storage problem would have came up if you'd have communicated this beforehand. But at least the sentiment you would have had a vibe check for. Think of the gold pass and all of the tweaks that you had to do to the gold pass, when if that was like more thoroughly communicated, you could have probably got like a much better like starting point. I don't want to sidetrack too far from like the hero's journey and the migration. So
But I like your point about like we had other cases in the history of Clash that, you know, things didn't happen or were not communicated in the best possible way, and we've always like tried to learn from this. At least in my memory, hopefully it's happening like more rarely, but we are in this loop of like always paying attention on these things, learning and trying our best to do better.
Which, you know, I guess credit where it's due. When it comes to the gold pass and stuff, you did eventually listen and get there, sort of thing. But I guess back to the migration, when it comes to, you know, what I've shared my thoughts that I think some of those things should have been given. I think the level of what should be given is, you know, different in different people's opinions. But I guess for players' expectation, can they expect anything like following this migration, following this chat, like moving forward? I know you put out like a blog post that explained, obviously we've gone over that a little bit, but can they expect anything else moving forward? Like, is compensation going to be backdated for this? Is there anything that players can be expecting or not? Because I think when they don't have a decisive answer, then it's up for interpretation. So like, can you comment if there is thoughts of compensation based on what the community has been sharing via the migration?
Well, no. We don't have any plans to change in the migration itself at this point. First, because Hero's Journey was made to tackle a very specific problem, and we need to analyze this problem and see like how things are performing before we move on. And keep in mind that like Hero's Journey is just one initiative. It doesn't mean that we're not gonna like do new things in other areas of the game that are tackling these other players, including those that feel that the migration was not that fair towards them. And second, because as we saw with things like ranked, migration is very, very hard. In the scale that we're dealing with, like migration is always a challenge. That's the most honest answer I can give you right now. But it's important to keep in mind that, as I mentioned it earlier, we have this kind of long-term view in Clash. And the question that I always ask myself is Clash better now than it was 3 or 4 years ago? My real answer is yes. Even with all the hiccups, I think that we are in a better stage now than we were before. I think that the hero journey will make the game better for new players, and we're gonna have other things being added to the game that will make the experience of the game better for the other players. So I think it's better than it was 3 or 4 years ago, and I truly believe that 1 or 2 years from now it will be even better. But the only way for us to like deliver to that promise of making the game better is like by listening to the feedback, iterating and making sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes. And that's what we are constantly trying our best to do.
You've mentioned a few times this is only like stage 1 or like part 1. I don't know how your exact wording, but like there's more things you want to do to the ore economy. So I'd like to move to that. I guess first, before we kind of like, because that's a big topic in itself. I've got an interview coming up with Petri. So I'm going to be asking him about bugs specifically, but Do you want to comment on the hero journey bugs being specific to your side of things? Like it's obviously not ideal from a player standpoint. What are your thoughts following the bugs after the fact?
Yeah, we feel the same about bugs. Like it's not a good thing for us. It's very hard for us to like react to all these problems. And in a massive update, when we have a lot of variables, a lot of points to verify whenever we do a change, fixing bugs becomes like a big challenge. And to be honest, we try to reply to bugs as fast as we can. In the case of Hero Journey, we had one specific bug that was very annoying for us. It's the bug where like players had upcoming nodes that were not yet achieved marked as claimed.
Yeah.
We already have a fix for that in. Players at this point should have been compensated, and like these things should have been fixed. If you're still facing that issue, please contact our support and we're going to figure that out. We had some other smaller things, but this was like the biggest one.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it was a very hard migration for us. It happened in an update with a lot of other things, and we tried to reply fast. I know that it seems like we didn't do it fast enough, but it was a challenge for us. And as always, we're trying to be open with you guys about this. We're trying to let players know, like, hey, we're working on this. If we have a fix like in hand, we say like we're working on this and we're gonna have the fix at that time. If things are open in the air and we're still like trying to figure out like when they're gonna be fixed, we're also honest about that. We say we're working on it. As soon as we have more info, we're gonna share. But bugs are always tricky, and it definitely like affected the whole way that this feature landed, and we hopefully will not face this that often in the future.
I think the other big one was people getting tasks that they weren't able to complete, which I know is by design not meant to be there,
No,
but
it
I would
wasn't,
say that was the other big bug of this, which, bugs are just annoying and frustrating, and I'm going to ask Petri about testing processes, but I can imagine like migrations are like a nightmare when it comes to that. But I do want to ask then, you have alluded to improvements to the ore economy as a whole, which is another frustrating point for people. Maybe going back to communication, like this seemed like it was going to be the fix for it, right? But you're saying it's not the fix for it. This is not intended as the ore economy fix. So are you able to like expand on, you said there's longer term views in mind. Are you able to expand on any of that as to what you have in mind?
Sure. So a lot of things are being tested now, and a lot of teams are involved in this front. We know that there's no like silver bullet to just like fix the whole ore economy. It's a complex issue that involves a lot of parts. And the fact that we didn't improve that in the past just made the problem like bigger. But now we are making sure that like a lot of people are involved on this, and we can treat this as an ongoing fix with bigger changes instead of just treating the systems in a like night and day situation and like dealing with the symptoms. We really want something that will be long lasting. I can share, without a lot of details, I can share some of the things that are changing and being worked now.
Okay.
So at the moment we're checking like more ways for players to acquire ores by playing. We're looking for more cost-effective ways for players to acquire ores in like shops, by gems and other fronts, but also without devaluing the experience of those that already like acquired this previously. And we're checking new types of events that will actually offer more ore, but at the same time be something fun so players can enjoy that moment. But as I said, it's not going to be a sudden change. We want to do this carefully, and we want to make sure that this is going to be an ongoing action that will just make the whole ore economy healthier for the future of Clash. And circling back to the hero journey, like I really think that some of these changes, some of the things that the team is already proposing, they can only exist because the hero journey will help them to, reach a wider audience, a wider player base when fine-tuning these things.
Okay. So when you say more ways to get ores, you were saying from playing the games, or like different events, or like clan games, or like nothing.
It's hard to give specifics now, but I can say that we're checking like different events, and we're checking for other areas of the game that we can put this in a natural way.
Okay. There was a couple of viewer questions, not necessarily related to the migration, but like moving forward as well. Because now that the ore chests are in the hero's journey, are they going to be introduced elsewhere? Like people were asking, can we see those elsewhere? Because that equally is a way to get more ores into the hands of players, right? And that's again through, if they're given as rewards, whether it's from when we have the string of challenge levels, having them in there, or I don't know, there's lots of different places you could put them. Can we expect those ore chests outside of the hero's journey as well?
We really like the ore chests, and we're happy with how they perform and how they work in game. So it will probably be something similar to what happened with the regular chests. So if you remember the regular chests, first we introduced them on the first treasure hunt event, and then after that we started like studying and testing like other placement for these chests. And nowadays we have them in multiple fronts. We don't have any specific plan now that I can commit or a timeline, but this is what we expect from these chests as well. We want to see like where they can be placed, how they can be placed, how we can distribute them in a way that is going to be like exciting to encounter these items. But one thing that I can guarantee that we already do with regular chests, and it's not going to be different with this one regardless of what is the plan, is that we don't monetize anything that has these randomized rewards. So nowadays in the game, like we don't directly sell any chests because we want to make sure that like we're selling a specific thing and you can quantify that value. Usually these things are more like to boost your engagement and to make sure that your session is has something exciting in there.
I think that's great to hear, in all honesty, and I would like to see them elsewhere as well. Sounds like that is the case. I appreciate you don't want to commit to anything, right? But like, sounds like that is definitely the direction. So in terms of the question, we could expect them elsewhere. Just where and when is up for debate. Yeah. You did mention there about making sure when like selling items, it is direct. You know what you're getting, and I think you mentioned the selling of ores as well in the section of ways you're looking to improve the ore economy. So is that more like, I know you've started adding them to bundles with other magic items. Is it more pricing structure of like how much you sell them for? Maybe how much gem value they're worth? Any of those kind of things on the table?
Well, now we have our economy team like checking these things and analyzing different fronts. And I don't want to like miscommunicate anything here. If you ask me about like the economy side, like
I appreciate this.
It's hard for me to say these things, but there's people like that know much more than me about these topics, like taking a look and testing new things.
Yeah. I think another common question, which, I mean, this is, I mean, even prior to Hero's Journey, right? But even like with the Hero Journey, the amount of equipment, and you're saying about like helping get that into the hands of players, but then equally, now which ones do they upgrade, right? Until players can test out the equipment for themselves, that is still tricky for people to decide. So I feel like this has been a request since equipment came out, but like having a testing ground to try equipment, is that something that we can expect? To me, it's a no-brainer. Like there should be a testing ground, just like Super Troops, to be able to test the equipment.
Well, I'm 100% biased here. I love this idea. I think we should definitely do this, and we had some talks, but yeah, this is something we should try to push forward, because the more we add new equipment to the game, like we want people to know like what are the possibilities there. So testing these things, it's very good, and we should definitely try to do that.
Yeah, because I even had, I mean, there's obviously a few questions like that, but there was, I'm going to ask this to David Burke. I know he's like live ops manager who I'll be interviewing, but there was also a question of like testing skins. So you could actually try the skins as well. So like maybe if a testing ground was built, it could be for testing anything, whether it's equipment, skins. Like I think that would be cool if you were to commit to something like that. It would benefit all different aspects.
I cannot commit to that, but I can say that I love the idea.
Like it. Well, I have clearly shared my thoughts on the Hero's Journey, the migration, the parts that I think were less than ideal and should have been done better, and that I and the community are not happy about. I appreciate the honesty, even if it's not always what people want to hear. I think honesty can always be respected. But given this is something that you've given your answers, you know, it's what most of the questions of this interview was at. I feel like from the community, even aside from this interview, you'll have seen like how the community feels about this. Any final thoughts, or like what would you like to say? Is there anything that you feel you've missed that you would like to share with the community? Just an opportunity, an open space for you to like.
Let me think a bit. I think starting with the hero journey story, like the whole objective of this chat for me was to just like explain exactly what it is. What are the reasons that we had in mind when we decided to do this? In Clash, we're always adding new things. Like the game has been alive for almost 14 years at this point, because we always listen to the different points. We learn, we iterate, and we keep on going. And this is something that will keep happening from now on. We're gonna always have like new elements to the game that are making the experience better, that are trying to, you know, make the game alive and thriving for 14 more years. So I think that was the reason behind it, and that's honestly our intention here. When it comes to the ore economy part, as I said, like this is not a fix for the ore economy. This is one step, and there are a lot more things coming up. And as soon as these things are more concrete, we're gonna make sure we communicate them early enough. We are very honest and open and make sure that everybody understands it. And if like something is not clear, we want to give ourselves like enough time before they're live to clarify these points. But in the end of the day, like the most honest thing I can say here is that we all really like the game and we're trying to make it better. Sometimes we'll, you know, make some mistakes, but we'll keep learning from them, owning whatever hiccups we had, and trying to connect with the people and like make things better for the future. And I honestly think that Clash is in a state nowadays, after all these changes of this year and the changes that are still coming up, that the future will be more fun, because we're just like adding more and more systems that are making the overall experience better and more, you know, long lasting.
Well, I do look forward to, as those things are implemented for the ore economy, the common thread that, and like when you're saying learnings that can be taken forward, is the communication. I have heard many times, and the community has heard many times, about communication being better and going to be open and transparent, and then for whatever reason, like those things don't happen. So I would just hope that this truly is a learning that you can take forward and be communicative of things in advance, and that truly does now happen moving forward, because I think that is a common thread throughout a lot of these things, whereby just open communication beforehand, rather than this like silly little teasing sometimes, and then getting like expectations, right? And I think that is fine, sneak peeks and like right next to an update and stuff, but just that little bit more for like players that are a bit deeper into the game and do want to read and pre-plan, and like that more communication is really important for that subgroup, especially when you are saying you want to make the game for everybody, right? And people play in different ways, people like to plan in different ways, and making sure that, you know, the active dedicated players can make better informed decisions, I think is, for me, the biggest learning that you can apply moving forward to future things as well. But again, I want to thank you for joining on such, I'm sure for you, a difficult topic. I'm glad you didn't decline to come on the show or anything. So I really appreciate the honesty. And I know it's, you know, you're just a person working on a team that loves the game, right? Like it feels like we're like directing things at you. Honestly, that's how I feel as a creator sometimes. Like I get the slack because I'm the person that people can vent through. But I appreciate you coming on and answering the questions. And I would just strongly encourage those things moving forward. But yeah, again, Rafa, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Hopefully we can get some juicy information. Who better to ask than you? Elephant Rider, new troop.
Never heard of it. I don't know what you're talking about, man. It is coming.
Can we expect more builder-based updates? We've seen like tweaks and things like that, but
The truth is, if you wait until whole build is perfect, you're not going to do anything else in the game for a long time. Let's see what happens.
any thoughts on lab improvements?
Yes, so one thing that we are considering is...
Any super early hints or teasers for Town Hall 19?
Super early, okay? Something we're trying to do is make